morning, ladies and gentlemen, Country Michael, Dr. Iqbal, and guests attending this forum. Let me start by just giving a very brief introduction, because the people sitting, for example, the person sitting next to me was my former boss, and once upon a time, and she's held several roles. The CV is in the program booklet, so I will not read out anybody's CV. And on my right is a Professor Dr. Chin, Engineer Chin. And again, there's no point in reading out CVs, which are already done. And on my extreme left is Dr. Anthony Das. So without just a comment, and I would hope that the panelists will take it forward, the global economic outlook doesn't look very promising. It looks a bit dismal, and I want to know and the reports seem to be saying that unless there are very transformative kind of policies were put in place, the developing countries will actually do very badly, and the most affected will be the poorest of the poor. So with that note, I would just like to start with Dr. Anthony Das, and each speaker will be given 10 minutes, after which we will take questions from the floor, and if there are no questions from the floor, I'll ask some questions. Thank you.
Good morning, country, Dr. Sri, Dr. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizing committee for the remarkable work that they have done. Let us put our hands together and appreciate the hard work that they have done. Thank you very much. Now, as we have come into 2024, starting of 2024 is a leap year. Now, if we look at 2024, certainly yes, it's a year with a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of complexity out here. And if we look at if we just look at 2023, whatever said and done, 2023 actually beat expectations. So I'm not going to run through all the points here. You can have my slides thereafter. And very importantly, if we look at 2024, what is happening here, very interestingly, from the business perspective and also from the economic perspective, this is the first time in the global survey the topic of geopolitical uncertainties came out as number one. And only after that, we looked at things like global election. Yeah, this year is full of election. There's about 70 countries going to election. But very importantly, everyone are focusing on US, that is Trump and Biden, so that we'll have two different views, and that is going to shape the global economy. Over and above that, we also have the Indonesian election, and thereafter India. Now the good thing that the Taiwan election is over, so the initial fear was there could be some tension, but the good thing nothing happened. Besides that, we have the global central bank, they are in dilemma, because this year is a year of transition from rate hikes now to rate cuts. Inflation may not be fully all over. There is still a risk of underlying inflation. Now on China, in actual fact itself is China itself, the issue of deflationary, the issue of Chinese debts, and the confidence from the private sector. Besides that, the property downturn, and now the new thing is the FDI concerns here. And also the last part is on China with US and Europe, their relationship. Would there be further sanctions out there, especially with the geopolitical stand on China? And the other part is on trade tensions, and now lately what I heard is on the EV sector itself. Now, going forward from here, if I look at the whole thing, while looking at all those concerns, there are also strong possibility the global GDP can overshoot whatever expectations made by the economists and the rest of the people here. Number one, Asia remains strong. Okay? There's a lot of tailwind coming from Asia from the export side and also on the domestic side. And importantly, you have to remember that the global semiconductor sector is recovering. So that will certainly benefit Asia. So the Asian countries that we are focusing a lot is on India, Indonesia, and Philippines will be the main driver. Thereafter, we have Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia to register moderate growth, China to see more of a modest kind of growth here, which is still growing. Okay? It is not to say that it's on a negative number. Besides that, we also expect manufacturing to start recovering from their below trend. And there's also a lot of bright spots on the labor market and also rising real income with inflation coming down. What we are seeing today is that average income growth in advanced economy is between 2 to 4%, and for Asia we are talking about 4 to 5.5% kind of level. So that should support consumer spending. And if you look at the other part of this whole thing here, when you look at the outlook, fair enough, there's concern about US, but we take a view that US will bend but will not break, meaning to say it's quite unlikely they're going to a deep recession or something like that. Any kind of recession will really be a transitory recession here. And in the case of Euro, they could be actually heading more for a soft landing. There are gradual indicators showing that they could find their footing out there. Now, if you look at the other part here on Asia, Asia, the recovery is actually coming from the semiconductor side and also on the cooling inflation labor market itself. And one important thing I would like to highlight on Asia here is that because of all this trade tension and so on, now I see there's a new Asian tiger that has emerged. Japan, Korea, and Singapore. These are the new tigers that we are talking about on the global semiconductor segment itself here. So generally, Asia should be driving the global economy again. And besides that, if you look at Japan, it's still on a positive mode, and they have been in a lull for more than 3 decades. And now, after the pandemic, Japan is slowly coming up strongly. And if you look at China, well, there are a lot of concerns about China, but the point here you must remember, they are still growing. They are growing at about 4% to 4.5%. So it is not all doom and gloom on China. So how I would look at China would be certain segments of the economy there that is going to grow would certainly benefit Malaysia. Maybe certain segments would not benefit Malaysia. So the essence of the whole thing today is the focus is on the fiscal policy, because they have said that they are going to do a target of 3% GDP. But we must remember in the past, during times of tough times in China, they have actually inflated the off-balance sheet. So this is something that they could be doing again to keep the momentum going. So I'm not too concerned about whether they grow at moderate or modest. The point here is they are still growing. So that is an important point we need to take into account here. And coming into Malaysia, okay, Malaysia, the interesting part of last year, besides the global tension, we had a lot of domestic challenges, especially on the political side. I believe that now all this has settled down, so this year will be a way forward. So for a start, what we're seeing for the Malaysian side, we're looking at real income to increase, at least by 2.5 to 3.5% kind of level, with inflation coming off. Labor market is still good. And very importantly, what I would like to highlight here is the gig economy. If you look at the gig economy of Malaysia, it has gained strong traction. It's about 40% of the workforce coming from the gig economy. That is 25% of the labor force here. And if you talk about the OPR, I take a view that Bank Negara is unlikely to change the OPR. That would mean that your lending rates are going to hold. So if the lending rates are going to hold with the point here that your real income is improving, that is going to eventually kick in positively to the property market and let alone consumer spending itself. Fiscal support is also there. We have a 90 billion on the development expenditure that should drive the economy. Now, over and above that, if you look at the benefits of those ongoing infra projects, new projects that are coming out, so these are things that's expected to benefit. Besides that, I see that investors' confidence has come in. You can see from the FDI numbers itself, okay, per se. And the other part is now the potential MOU between Johor and Singapore. Now that is going to be a good catalyst, not just for Johor State, there's also going to be spillover into the national economy itself. And overall, when I look at the health of the banking system, it is good. And in this year, if you're looking at the bank loans to grow around 5%, that translates to tell me that even I split it up half and half, 2.5% to 3% is going to come from business and the balance is going to come from household segment. So, net off effect here, if you look at the whole thing here, Malaysia is actually on a positive growth. So these are the policies now we expect the government to start focusing on, because all these are the roadmaps of the 12 Malaysia midterm review, the new industrial master plan, then we have the Madani, then the energy and the budget. All these we have ironed out last year, but we have not really seen a strong push this year. But now, I believe with the political noise slowly getting off the ground, things are becoming more focused. It's the best for the country to start focusing on to boost competitiveness. It's not just competitiveness, we also are focusing a lot on ESG itself. Okay? So I think that is the way forward. All businesses will have to cater, because you must remember, by 2050, 70% of our trading partners will comply to net zero. And if Malaysia is not there, we are going to lose out totally. And these are the industries that should be looking out for. So these are some of the macro numbers that I'm looking at. Well, in terms of growth numbers, well, just now Dr. Sri was mentioning about 4 to 5% and the World Bank talks about 4.3. I think I'm a bit more optimistic to say that this year we should be doing close to 5% kind of level here. And the ringgit should also start strengthening, partly because the dollar weakening with the cut of the interest rate that itself gives a push, and the momentum growth in Asia, which Malaysia would be benefiting from that cycle itself. So technically ringgit should be coming to about 4.20 kind of level. Interest rate should be around 3% here. On the last slide of mine, if you look at the global number, it's still about 2.9. And if you look at US, even if they grow this year, it's 1.8, it is still close to 2% average of before the pandemic. It is a good number. And if you look at China, 4.5 or 4 is still a decent number. I must tell you one last story before I stop here. When China started growing at 8 to 9% then in the 90s, when I did a long-term extrapolation, China should be growing around 4% around now. And eventually, 3 years to 4 years down the road, China should be growing around 3.5 to 3% as they are moving away from their traditional economy to more consumer-driven economy. So if I look at my long-term trend that time when I did, I think it's falling in place today. So with that, I would like to thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Das. Can I ask Professor Chin to go next?
Okay, before we come to this how is Malaysia economy will perform, we have to look at the world economy first. According to this IMF World Bank studies, the global economic growth will be around 2.7 to 2.8% for this year. So it's slightly less than 3% in 2023. So you can see this year, we can see that the economic growth will be slower compared with last year. Last year, just most of the countries just out of this COVID-19. So because the time, the base is very low, the economic base, that's why the growth rate is higher. So now we are comparing with 2023, that's why the base is higher, so that's why the growth rate 2.7 to 2.8% considered moderate. And then we look at this world, we have to look at this what we call other regions. Once economics projected to have economic growth of 1.3%. This is all the prediction done by all this World Bank and IMF. Then for these emerging economics, they are economics supposed to perform better, 3.8% to 4%. These are the figures. And look at US, according to prediction, is about 1.6% growth. So that means it's good. That means amongst all the West countries, US is performing better than Western Europe countries or these EU countries. So because the average is only 1.3, for US is 1.6, so it's considered not so bad. And another second largest economy in the world is China. China's last year performed 5.2% in 2023. This year, according to most projection, is to about 4.1 to 4.6%. But I think most of the times China can outperform the prediction. I think if according to my prediction, China should be able to perform 5% also. Because most of the what I call Western kind of analysis always say China is not doing so well. But most of the time, China proved them wrong. So I presume China this year still can maintain 5%. And this is very important to Malaysia, because Malaysia is the largest trading nation with this China. We export a lot of these what I call palm oil, electronic products to this China. So China growth is very important to Malaysia economic growth also. So and then look at the what I call the Asia alone. According to this emerging Asia, the growth rate should be about 5%, 4.8% to 5%. And then for this emerging, this what I call European countries and these Latin American countries, the projection is about 2 to 2.5%. So generally, Asia is still leading the way in the economic growth. Then you talk about Malaysia. Malaysia's the growth is projected to be between 4 to 5%. I would assume it will be about 4.5% this year. That's why compared with last year, Malaysia economic growth is more than 5%. That's why this year generally will suffer a little bit. That's why in order for Malaysia economy to grow better, so we have to do some things. First thing, we have to look at this GDP, the composition of our GDP. So our GDP is made up of the what I call number one is the domestic consumption. Second one is the government spending. Third one is the investment, foreign direct investment, and this what I call domestic investment. And then the another factor would be, the last factor would be this what I call net export. I mean total export minus the total import. For these four components or this GDP, we can know what our country should do. First thing, we have to diversify our trading nation. Most of the time we rely so much on China, ASEAN countries, US and European markets. That's why it's time for us, in this year, we have to diversify into other untapped markets like this South American market, African market, so that we will diversify our trading nation. This is very important because in this year, it's going to be very competitive because the general world economic growth will be slower. So most of the time, all these other countries will be very compete for this smaller cake. That's why Malaysia economics have to do better, to diversify our trading to other not normal nations like South American countries, African countries. Because African countries is also catching up because of the help of China through this One Belt One Road. So these some of these African countries are doing quite well also. Don't always think that African countries got no capacity to buy products from us because within these few years they are doing quite well from some of the African nations. So that's why we have to look into this African nation also. And another thing also, we have to bring in more foreign direct investments and encourage more domestic investment in order to make sure that our economic growth can achieve 4.5%. First thing, we have to attract more foreign direct investment for other countries like China, US, European countries, and ASEAN countries, other parts of ASEAN countries also, because we have more foreign direct investment, so that there will be more employment opportunities for our country, and also we can earn more what I call foreign revenues, or can increase our what I call the revenues of our country. So this is very important. So that's why our Prime Minister PMS is working very hard trying to attract investment from this USA, from China, from European countries and other Middle East countries. This one can really sort of help the growth of our economy. And for this domestic investment also, we have to encourage more domestic investment also because first thing, the government has to show more political stability. I think after the new king will sworn in tomorrow, or no, on the 31st of January, I think there will be more political stability. This is also good for attracting more foreign direct investment and encourage more domestic investment for our own businessmen or industrial manufacturers in Malaysia because there will be more political stability. So this is very important. And I think also we have to attract more what I call high value-added manufacturing companies to invest in Malaysia. That's why we have to sort of go for more education and training on how to upgrade the skills of our workers so that we can attract more value-added investment from these advanced countries. Because no point we get this very intensive manufacturing industry from other countries that will not really bring much benefit to our country except this what I call the employment to our workers need. So we have to go up this value change. And then also we have to build more infrastructures like these roads, railways, airports, so that we can cut down the cost of doing business. This is very important for foreign investors. Any foreign investor they want to invest in any country, they will look at how is our infrastructure, so that that will affect their cost of doing business. It's very important also. And I think also about corruption is very important also. This one we have to really look into it. And I think cut short so we have to go for more automation also, so that we can increase the productivity of our production process. This is very important. Another thing is we have to sort of improve the productivity of the public service sector also, because it's very important, because they are the one to support this what I call the foreign direct investment, the efforts. Very important, because if they can do it faster and give the approval faster and provide all the necessary information and all the necessary support to this foreign direct investor, all that FDI will come into Malaysia. And it's very, very, very important. I think they will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Prof. Norma.
Thank you very much, Professor Subo. Assalamualaikum and very good morning, Nasri Michael Yo, Dr. Iqbal, the council members of KSI. First of all, I'd like to thank KSI for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts on the economy. I think the previous speakers have spoken at length, including Dr. Iqbal, about the challenges, the uncertainties in the global area and also regionally. Yeah. The way I would look at this is to see what is the impact on the economy. You can look at it in terms of short-term impact and also taking a longer-term view. I would take the longer-term view, yeah, because the uncertainties and challenges will always be there. What's important is that how does it impact our economy? And the previous speakers have touched on that as well. One of the important things that Malaysia would still need is the FDI, the foreign direct investment. Dr. Anthony Das has also spoken about it, that what are the merits or the advantages of the FDI? We do have very good enough domestic capital as well, so the DDI should not be ignored. And we need that as much as the FDI, but the importance of FDI are the volume. Yeah? That the FDI provides capital, technology, market access, and also technology transfer. So more than a decade ago, we talked about how we want to be part of the global supply chain in order for us to elevate to the higher status of becoming a high-income nation. So with FDI, it is a faster route. It's a faster route for us to be part of that. And also FDI would also attract, or rather needs a conducive environment for foreign investors. So in order for us to attract foreign direct investment, we will also look at the investment climate, our compliance to ESG, and many others that will provide the ecosystem that one needs when one wants to invest in the country. And yesterday, at the talk given by Her Excellency in the UK, High Commissioner, one of the invitees were talking about how Malaysia, the advantage of Malaysia is also our clarity with regards to the land law, for instance. Yeah? So these are some of the things that we need to further strengthen and move towards those factors that will attract FDI. And certainty and clarity is one of those main factors. And FDI will also impact on the productivity and also bring innovation in our labor-intensive sectors. With FDI, we were talking earlier about how automation, the adoption of technology, and digitalization. Yeah, so with FDI coming in, they will bring in the technology, the technical know-how as well. And the human capital quality will also improve FDI benefits because of it would facilitate technology spillovers, and this can be done through learning by doing these linkages. And one good example is, of course, look at Singapore. But of course, for human capital quality, it will require investment on the part of the government as well as Malaysians in general for us to get better education, and also to be the STEM has to be it has to be strong, the science, technology, education. And human capital quality will also increase competitiveness and competitive advantage. And as I would like to add to what Anthony mentioned earlier, that Asia will be the fastest growing economy in the world, that we've learned that 70% of growth will come from Asia. So we're hoping that Malaysia can benefit from the dynamism in the region. Now, there are three issues that I'd like to focus on, which I think have been talked about, but three main issues that we have to, as a country, in order for us to be competitive. These are structural issues that we still are not able to overcome this. We are working on it, but it is not taken on board more strongly as it would impact in a big way. Yeah. The three main issues that I would like to focus on is the productivity growth that is slowing down, the employment issues, and the investment efficiency. And I think some of the points were mentioned earlier. Productivity growth has slowed down. Yeah. Lower labor productivity can lead to lower real GDP. And a decrease in labor productivity means that fewer goods and services are produced per hour of work. And this can lead to lower economic growth, lower wages, and higher unemployment rates. So I think the figures, many of you I think would have seen that from 2018 to 22 is much lower than the productivity of the 5 years before that. And also, especially if you were to compare with the 1988 to 1997, our robust economic growth was contributed by the higher productivity. Now, the employment issues, there are at least two factors affecting the employment issues. One is Malaysians lacking the needed skills that employers want, and the other one, of course, is that not enough skilled work that has been created. So Malaysia lags behind in high-skilled workers. This, if we were to see, to be indicated by the employment, by educational attainment. And the majority of field jobs and vacancies are in the semi-skilled category. The data from DOSM, the 2022 data, shows that almost 80% of job creators are semi-skilled and low-skilled. So this shows that the jobs created are not in the high-skilled jobs, and also we don't have enough people to fill up those jobs. And this can be indicated by the number of graduates that have graduated with higher and tertiary education. Yeah? So there has been a decline if we were to look at it over the years. And also in tertiary education, as I mentioned earlier, especially with regards to below 24 years old, because they come in with the high school or the SPM qualification and stay in the job market and then go out and get the training. So, but at job entry is still less than 30%. So this is something that Malaysia should look at. The informal employment, like gig workers, as Dr. Das has mentioned earlier, is an increasing trend, and the CAGR is around 3% from 2020 to 2023. Now, the gig workers is not a problem as such, but it has the issues with informality, yeah, where social insurance and social security is lacking, and especially with retirement benefits, that about 55% of the working ages population in Malaysia is not covered by any social protection. So this will also lead to them expanding their business when informality is also linked to access to loans and credits, and that would also mean that the business will always remain micro and small. My second last point is on population aging, because it will affect productivity. The working population, the workforce will be shrinking with the aging population, and the old age dependency ratio, which describes on how many people who support the older persons. In 2020, for every 100, we have 10 older persons to support, but in 2050, it's double, it's more than double, 26 older persons that needed to be supported. My last point is on the investment efficiency. I think earlier it was mentioned about, and I also spoke about productivity, but the investment efficiency is also measured through the incremental capital output ratio. And in the case of Malaysia, in 2014, relatively we are lower, we are about 4.6%, whereas the countries like Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam, they are ahead of us. Yeah? But we have caught up. We've caught up in 2019 that it was around 2.65 in 2019. But from COVID, during COVID, the COVID pandemic, and until now, we are not able to pick up. So now it is at 4.38. So this is something that we have to focus on in order for us to benefit from the growth dynamics that's happening in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Norma. Can I have Jeff to go ahead? Dennis, thank you.
Okay, good morning. Thanks for inviting me. Okay, let me try to structure my remarks in the following way. First, I'll talk about the overall global economic environment. Then I'll look a little bit about the Malaysian economic environment for the year to come. And then I want to look at some of the policies, because I think the long-term policy issues are important now, because we're moving into a period of relative macroeconomic stability, albeit rather modest. But nonetheless, that allows us now to focus on some of the very important long-term structural issues, which I know that we all share. These are issues that across which there is a great consensus in the economic community. So first, let's look at the global environment. The global environment will be largely determined during this year by the global political environment. And what we know about the global political environment this year is that almost half of the world's population will be voting this year, in one way or another. The number of elections across different countries is extraordinary. The number of people who will be involved in those elections runs into billions of people. And what we can see from the general perspective across different countries is that we are likely to see very many governments change. In the United Kingdom, it is absolutely certain that the Conservatives will lose the next election during this year. They have absolutely no chance of winning. And this is very, very dangerous for the United Kingdom, in my view, because I should point out that I am a member of the Conservative Party, so it's the danger for the United Kingdom is that we will move into a period of very severe political instability because of the resurrection of the issue of Brexit, which we hoped to have put behind us. But the change, the possible change, the certain change in the forthcoming Labour government in the United Kingdom might raise that issue again. And that will be very, very dangerous for the political environment in the United Kingdom. Across the European Union, we also know that there is a very significant rise in right-wing politics across the Union, and that also signals a very deep dissatisfaction with the political and particularly the economic. It's really the economic dissatisfaction which leads to that political outcome. And that also is something of deep concern. In the United States, of course, we will have an election in November. It looks pretty much like Trump will win that election on the basis of the current polls, although they will change significantly. There's a where we are now, he will win, there's no question. But where we will be in October, we don't know. Depending on your point of view, that will be a good thing or a bad thing. My personal view is it will be a good thing to have a change in the administration in the United States, because the current administration is very unstable and we have a very difficult global geopolitical environment. And whatever you think about Donald Trump, we didn't have a war in Ukraine under Donald Trump. We didn't have a war in the Middle East under Donald Trump. And the entente across the political stability, whether you like it or not, we had a much clearer global political environment under him. So we will have all of this, and all of this is of course going to affect the overall global economy in terms of economic growth. And what that means is the general picture will be for much suppressed economic growth. That's a general consensus. There will be a much more difficult geopolitical situation which will have a significant impact on the possibilities of overall economic growth globally. What does that mean for Malaysia? Well, Malaysia is a very trade is a very important component of what's going on in Malaysia. But what we know from last year is that although there was a very big impact of contraction of trade, nonetheless net trade always holds up, because although exports tend to decline, nonetheless imports also tend to decline. So the net contribution from trade was weaker, but nonetheless there was still a continued positive contribution from trade. So the story for 2024 will be rather similar to the story for 2023, which will be a weak global environment and therefore a greater necessity to focus on the domestic environment. But it appears to me that we are in a much better position from a domestic perspective, because we have first inflation, which is much more under control than it was before. This time, January of 2023, our predictions were that inflation would be below 2% by the end of the year on a monthly basis, 2.5% overall, and that's where we are. Our prediction in 2023 January for where we would be now would be that growth would be less than 4%, and it will be less than 4%. Might just touch 4% if you're lucky, but it will be lower than 4% this year. And our forecasts now in January for where we will be by the end of this year are not too far away from that. Inflation is likely to be around 2 to 2.5%, and growth will be between 3 and 4% for Malaysia. And this reflects a structural change in the Malaysian economy, which is a consequence of the damage that was caused by the COVID, the impact of COVID, the scarring. This is a structural change. And so the official forecasts of 4.5 to 5.5%, 4% to 5% reflect, in my view, a different structure. That is the structure of the economy pre-COVID. The structure of the economy now is such that the underlying rate of growth in Malaysia has significantly fallen. And it's fallen into this range of, we would expect 3 to 4% is the underlying growth rate for the economy. And so we would expect to see that during 2024. There is very little to tell us or to suggest to us that we would perform better than that during 2024. The economy is moving domestically into a period of relative stability because the inflation has come down. We do not expect interest rates to change at all during this year unless there is a big shock. And that's something that we have been predicting the whole of 2024, actually, that it will get to 3% and it will stay there. And it's going to stay there unless, or the interest rates are going to stay there unless there is a big shock, which by definition we can't predict. So what this means is that we would go into a period of price stability and lower but more stable economic growth domestically. We have a better fiscal position than we had before. Budget 2024 was very much better than the previous budgets that we've had. And this, to me, reflects a different attitude toward the creation of budgets, which is very much what we have been hoping to see. Previous budgets have been a disaster, one way or another, and now what we're seeing is a much better approach to dealing with the budgetary approach. The overall spending increased only a little bit in line with inflation. Revenues are expected to rise organically. The deficit fell in absolute terms and in relative terms, and that's where you would want to be in terms of fiscal policy. Since I have to wind up, what this means is that we are now in a position where we can move toward looking at structural reforms, amongst which there are many. Okay, we have a list, Anthony showed a list of some of these policies, the midterm review, the new industrial master plan. These policies are, frankly, a waste of time. And we can basically forget it. Let me just give you one indicator. The new industrial master plan is a plan to invest 95 billion ringgit over 7.5 years. It will deliver a lower return than if you took the 95 billion and invested it in a fixed deposit at Maybank. It is a very poor policy which will deliver very little in terms of long-term economic growth. But there are very important other policies which will deliver, or potentially will deliver, much better outcomes, not just in terms of economic growth or income growth, but socially. The paddle system, which we hope to see in the middle of the year, should help with raising incomes, for example. So these are the things that we need to focus on in the long term. In order to help people to understand raising incomes is the primary concern, or should be the primary concern of the government during 2024 and onwards.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And last but not least, Mr. Fullaus.
Thank you, Prof. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning to everyone. I'm not usually late, but when I'm late, I'm really, really late. So I have to apologize for the unfashionably late entrance on the stage. So I think many of us here on the stage have said what needed to be said in this panel. But can I just get like a feel from the room? Can you raise your hand if you think that 2024 is going to be a better year than last year? So okay, thank you. So I suspect that many of us who did not raise their hands will be the opposite. Okay. Okay, here's the thing. It's not particularly unusual for us to feel this way. You know, we are very risk averse naturally, and the prospect of us facing the unknown uncertainties are usually the one who give us a very bleak picture about our immediate future, our or even at a long-term perspective where we talked about just now. But interestingly, most financial economists last year have the same feeling about the global economy, because the speed of the interest rate hikes, particularly by major economies last year, were a bit steep, and something that we have at a rate that we have not seen for decades. So many of us thought that, you know, 2023 something would break eventually, but guess what? It did not. You know, the global economy actually showed very resilience, great resilience to the higher interest rate environment, but interestingly enough, the pessimism carries to 2024. And if you look into the latest multilateral development bank projections, like the IMF came out with theirs in October, OECD was a bit later in November, ADB was in December, and World Bank was about 3 weeks ago. And the similarities that I see of all these multilateral development bank projections is that they feel that while they think that things are okay, but the numbers are showing otherwise, and some are actually the opposite. But overall, multilateral development banks are looking at growth for the global economy this year to come in somewhere between 2.4 to 2.9. It depends on where and what you look at, but global recession is going to be very, very unlikely, no matter what you say. That's number one. Number two is that who are the major economies that will play a major role this year? One, it was going to be the United States, as what many of us have mentioned. The United States will go into elections come November, and we will notice that, you know, the prospects of rate cuts will probably be delayed, and that's one. And two, we may see a global bond rally in the lead up to the US presidential elections, and which makes the strength of US dollar hold up rather than not. So while many of us feel that the currencies of the emerging economies, particularly Malaysia, will strengthen towards the end of the year, it may not turn out that way unless if you do something drastic. Okay, that's about the global economy. Now, about the global food inflation, I think things are still okay, but pay little attention to two things. One is dairy and the other one is sugar, because these two things are going in opposite direction and they are steep. For example, like sugar is coming down, dairy is going up for over the last 2-3 months. So, but overall, you know, when it comes to other food items such as rice, etc., things are still okay. Not these two items, because they are quite diverging. And when it comes to trade, global trade seems to be okay. WSTS, the World Statistics in Semiconductor, believes that it has bottomed out last year, somewhere in February. So things will be okay and will be okay in 2024. The WTO World Trade Organization feels that this year the global economy may record somewhere between 13 to 14% additional trade globally, with perhaps a better China and a better global economy as well. So things might be okay from the trade standpoint. Now let me bring it down to Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is going to go on the opposite direction compared to the global economy and most high-income economies. The reason for this is that many of us in Southeast Asia, including Malaysia, did not record a good growth in 2023, particularly because of the headwinds from external environment, trade. So we expect some kind of a rebound in 2024 with Malaysia. If in 2023 we will, our growth was like maybe somewhere between 3.7 to 3.8 growth year on year, and this year MBank is looking at 4.5% in terms of GDP growth. The outlook for this year, as far as growth is concerned, for Southeast Asia is going to be two. One, interestingly, Philippines, and second, Vietnam. Why Philippines? Things are going pretty well from their standpoint. They're spending quite well, and Vietnam, of course, investments are still coming in. There are news reports saying that even the Chinese are going to Vietnam looking for job opportunities. So things are actually very, very vibrant in Vietnam. And when it comes to Indonesia, Indonesia will grow relatively flat, but still okay. Last year, most of multilateral development banks are looking at 5%. This year, most likely to be at 5% range as well, and 5% on the dot, 5.0. But the key for Indonesia is that while inflation is coming down for Indonesia, the key point is that the agriculture-related inflation is going up. So you will notice that food inflation, core inflation related to food, will also remain elevated throughout 2024. And this is partly structural, partly cyclical. The structural bit is that they do not have the required technology for increased production of their agricultural products. And the cyclical one is that it's not particularly attractive for Indonesians to work in the agricultural sector. Now, for Malaysia, things are going to be okay this year. Compared to last year, we're going to be okay. Ringgit, in theory, is going to strengthen. In theory, it's going to strengthen towards the end of the year. We are looking at 4.5 to a dollar. Subject to one, the Fed will cut rates aggressively more towards the second half of this year. We're probably not going to cut with a penknife, but rather like a samurai sword. So that will give a lot of the necessary boost for capital movement to the AMS, including Malaysia. The only point that I'm worried about for Malaysia is subsidy rationalization. I've mentioned this in the RMK 12 kickoff conference about 2 years ago, when Minister Rafiq Ramli was first appointed to the job. And I said that now it's not the time for Malaysia to rationalize subsidies, because we must correlate ourselves with the movement of the global economy, and in particular the advanced economies. Now, things are very, very good for the US. And for the EU, for example, Eurozone, for them to still, trying their very best to circumvent recession last year and probably this year as well. That means things are holding up pretty well for them too. Right now, for us, is that for subsidy rationalization, while maybe most of us will believe that this is the right thing to do, but the key question to subsidy rationalization as to what price should RON 95 be. If we were to float it, okay, whether it's going to be monthly or weekly or daily. Like in the past administrations, it was monthly first, then we moved to weekly, and then subsequently there was push for daily rest for around 95. But things got a little bit different towards the 2018 elections. So, subsidy rationalization, if we were to rationalize subsidy, okay, but at what rate? And I think I'll stop here, and if there are any questions relating to global, regional, and perhaps the local economy, I'll be happy to take any of your questions.
Thank you to all the panel members for a very interesting session and insights. Can I just open up the floor for questions? Please just stand up, raise your hands, or stand up and just ask the question. And just tell us who you are and where you're from. Thank you. Any questions from the floor? The mics are there. Yes, please.
Hi, good morning to the panel speakers. It's really an insightful session and really great sharing information that's being brought to you guys by various opinions. My question is being directed, before the question, my name is Wayne. I'm coming from Anglo Group, and my question is being directed towards Dato Sri Muhammad Iqbal. So it was really impressive slides that you presented just now. I find that it's really insightful. But one question I'd like to delve towards is the mega projects and future infrastructure that you mentioned about that is going to create positive growth to our country. And I think the elephant in the room is definitely the HSR project, which has been ongoing since maybe a decade ago. And with the more modern approach for government funding is to have private funding in terms of these mega infrastructure projects. And that's what we are able to observe. And we are also seeing multiple players coming into the picture, going for the RFI. But we're also able to see that Japan companies, they are dropping out of these projects. They're not even buying the RFI documents simply because it's not being publicly funded even for a cent. So, based on this information and also the cost benefit of recovering the cost that's being built, this infrastructure project, what is the rationale for the private institutions to actually join this big picture? Because one scenario that we can take, for example, let's say be very, very skeptical. You're spending 60 billion ringgit in building a HSR project. Say you can go even higher, 80 billion, 100 billion, and taking into account the interest rates, maybe 5%, and the interest that we're paying might be, say, 3 billion. So if you take these into as an example, the flight that we are taking from KL to Singapore, they are not even accounting for 3 billion, let's say, or even monthly or even yearly. So how is it making economic sense for private institutions to make the math when the government is insisting for these projects to be privately funded? So that's my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dr. Sri Iqbal is not on my panel, but I'm very happy to invite him on the panel. Maybe you want to answer that question, Dr. Sri?
Thank you, Professor Sulochana. I think with due respect to the eminent members of the panel, including the chair, the question is very specific on a project related to what is being now talked about. It is not yet on the table and so on. And some of the points that you have raised are very valid. How do you fund? And what do you get the ROI or whatever it is? I think it is better that this be discussed at some other, or maybe even in the corporate outlook panel afterwards. And so with respect, I think the panelists would give whatever their take on the question and others. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. you want to say something on this?
All right, when we look at just a specific project like HSR, it has always been debatable, right from day one when Najib was the Prime Minister itself. We have always been discussing about the ROI, and that's why there has always been a delay and so on. Even now, it's still on the table, but not necessarily it will move. But when we talk about ongoing infrastructure projects and potential projects, there are many others in the list. If you look at the list published in Budget 2024, NINP and so on, there are many other projects that may roll out fast, where there would be private-public partnership. Some projects, yes, it is there, but it may take time to roll out. So it's not necessarily it is there, it is going to be rolled out. Okay? So I think we have to look at this. The slide, I think the slide I gave was actually was not for that, but your comment here. And it was from my slide itself, but it was more of those kind of things. Okay? Because there are a lot of good projects which gives a lot of good multiplier. I give you a very good example. When we first started the KL Seremban Highway, at that point of time, I was with Central Bank of Malaysia. The resistance was terrible. It was really terrible. But today, everyone are enjoying the North-South Highway. Likewise, the East-West Highway, the resistance was horrible. But today, people are enjoying it. So on the same line, I would say like the Pan-Borneo Highway going forward, it's going to give a huge catalyst to Sabah, what more will Kalimantan come in? So the Nusantara project. Okay. So I think when we take projects like this, yes, I would say that the long-term returns are, it will take time, maybe 20 years, maybe 30 years. You must remember, when we do a highway, it is not just a point to point. The spillovers that is going to grow around it. If you look at, because of KL Seremban Highway, we have got what I would say the number of universities in Bangi today. It has become a research hub. So those are the spillovers you will see after 10, 15, 20 years, not overnight. So that is how it works. Right? Thanks.
Dr. Chin wants to make a
Talking about HSR, I think in the long term it should be a good project because any this mega project, infrastructure project, it will help 140 over other industry. So there's a spillover effect. And then this what called the railway, the railway go through any areas, there will be a housing boom along this track of this HSR. These are the benefits to Malaysia. Talking about long term, it should be good because another thing many people maybe didn't see is that this railroad will link directly to the Pan-Asia Railway. This one will directly go to this China, the Kunming city there. So this is a Pan-Asia Railway, not starting from Singapore, directly go through this Thailand, this Cambodia, many other these ASEAN countries and go straight away to this Kunming city in China. So this one in the long term, it will help with our export of goods directly from Malaysia, go straight through the railway, go to China. China going to be the largest economy, I think, in 2035. So with this HSR going to be ready maybe in 2028 or 2028 or something, 2030 or something like that. And then that will be in time for Malaysia to export our goods to China. That will be this sort of long-term benefits. Many people could just see, look at it from this call from Malaysia flying, going to this Singapore, maybe in terms of the flight, maybe not so cost effective, but when you think of the long term, this is a Pan-Asia Railway. This is the ultimate aim. Why this project, I think most Chinese China will get it because they, by hooks or by crooks, they will get it because they will really link this Singapore directly to China, the Kunming city. So I think even this Japan going to participate, I don't think they get it also. They bring it excuse that this one is a privately funded project, that's why they withdraw. This one is a good way for them to withdraw gracefully. anyway also they cannot compete also in terms of cost and the financial package China is offering. And then also because of the Land Master Plan, this Pan-Asia Railway, China must get it, not the whole thing cannot be linked together. There's a thing, they already got this project in this Thailand, Cambodia. Now only thing left is the what called the Malaysia, the Singapore, the Malaysia, KL, Singapore, HSR. This is the thing they want to get, so that the whole thing can be linked together. So I think we look at this whole picture. It should be good for Malaysia in the long run. That's what thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other panel?
Can I just make a brief point? This HSR issue speaks to me very much about the role of the government and the role of the private sector. But the fact is that every schoolboy wants a train set, right? And this HSR is just boys' toys. The reason the private sector aren't interested in it is because it's not economically viable. If it was economically viable, the private sector would run it. And what you have here are a group of people in the policy sphere, men, boys, old school boys, who just want to invest my money, your money, taxpayers' money, on projects which they cannot justify in economic terms. And whilst they are pushing and pushing and pushing on these projects, which will deliver no demonstrable or certain economic outcome, we are missing the point on social protection, on raising people's incomes, on dealing with the pension crisis. All of these issues which are urgent here and now are being ignored because we're focusing on boys' toys, sunshine, and windmills. We need to get out of that mindset and focus on the things that matter. Trains are not important. People are important.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there...
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. I'm from SDC Sarawak. Abdul Hadi here. Many analysts have been reporting figures that are ranging from 3% growth and to close to 5%. In the case of Sarawak, any analyst, right? We are taking things, in our own hands, right? Driving our economic growth through a lot of infrastructure developments. And in looking into the oil and gas sector, we're trying to go downstream, getting more values about our gas and gas and all that. And we're going into the green energy, green economy and all that. Hydrogen is one of them. How do you see Sarawak growth in relation to its ability to contribute towards overall nation growth? And of course, we in the SDC, one of those agencies spearheading these sectors where the government are actually, going in for the next 10 years. And through this very solid program called PCS 2030, right? The post-COVID development strategy 2030. I think one of those panels mentioning about the social inclusivity, where we're talking about raising the income of the people of Sarawak. So this is where I think we might be seen to be a bit different from the rest of Malaysia. And yes, perhaps being able to attract a lot of potential investors all over the world, and to see where they can play their part in our green economy and our other development initiatives and all that. So how do any of them view Sarawak initiative in relation to the growth of the national economy? Thank you.
I think that Sarawak is a real inspiration. And the recent announcements we've seen in terms of long-term economic policy in Sarawak have been both surprising and extremely welcome, in my view. The establishment of the Sovereign Wealth Fund, primarily focused on social protection in the long term. This is something we must do in the peninsula. I've advocated it also in terms of a super fund to finance long-term social protection. And here we have it in Sarawak as an example of how it can be done properly with proper coordination with the Norwegian Fund. The Norwegian Fund has been one of the world's most successful funds in terms of investing in the development of the economy as a whole, but using the returns of that ring-fenced for social protection. We need that. We have it in Sarawak. It's a great policy. The second great policy, free higher education. This is a wonderful policy, and it's a policy we can have and must have in the peninsula. It is affordable, 100% it's affordable. From the current budget, and I already demonstrated, for those who read my articles, I demonstrated clearly it is affordable. And here again, Sarawak is leading the way on this. And then in terms of some of the investment that has been identified, the mass wings, takeover of the airline, all of these sort of things. On the one hand, people say, well, this looks like the government's involving itself in the wrong type of thing, but actually these are strategically important, and they are balanced against an overall portfolio, which is part of a structured long-term development plan for Sarawak. So my view is that we really need to look at this, learn from it, use it as a little pilot, but quickly, do it quickly. We do it quickly, and then we copy it.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Sulo. Yeah, thank you very much for the question, because I am working on a project with UNICEF in Sarawak. And from our baseline research, we're looking at the data, and I would concur with Jeffrey, that Sarawak has a lot of things that we can learn, where the federal government can learn, yeah? Especially with regards to social protection. But the way that the economy is going, focusing on downstream, more of the value-added activities and production and generating knowledge, investing in R&D is a way to go. And that would be aligned to the green economy as well. Yeah? So you are moving in the right direction. I will touch a bit more on the social protection. That we are hoping, we are doing at least 2 projects with UNICEF in Sarawak, my center, not Sarawak, not the Malaysian Economic Association, don't worry. Yeah, this is my other hat. That we are expanding the current social protection that you have, and we were hoping that this will have a demonstrative effect to the federal government, because Sarawak can afford it, and that's the advantage of having your own revenue. Although sometimes, in some cases, you may have your own revenue, but if your priorities are not for the people, then you will be doing some other which is less productive and less socially inclusive. So I'm glad that you raised the question, and the social protection aspect of it, that it would also contribute to the human capital development. Yeah, it's not just about social justice or human rights, but it also contributes to human capital development, social insurance, social security, would encourage innovation and risk-taking. We're talking about earlier, Firdaus was talking about risk-averse. Malaysians or Asians in general are risk-averse, but we have the social security, social safety net, which now Sarawak is trying to provide for its people. Then we hope to see greater innovation, and therefore that will definitely drive productivity. Thank you.
Talking about Sarawak, I think Sarawak is in a very good place to become this the driving force for the green economy in Malaysia. Because right now it's the digital economy. I think digital economy is going to be replaced by this green economy in another 5 to 10 years time. So Malaysia without Sarawak, I think we cannot compete in this green technologies or green economy in the world, because Sarawak is the main what I call contributor to our this green economy. So that's why Sarawak also the forest, so much of forest, so many these are natural resources. I think Sarawak is the best place to implement this green economy in terms of clean energy, because Sarawak I think has been using a lot of this solar panels also, and then now they're using the hydrogen buses also. So and this Sarawak also got many rivers. So this one I think is very good for implementing these green technologies or green economy in Sarawak. So Sarawak I think should focus more on this area, because Sarawak definitely advantages over other parts of Malaysia. These green technologies and green economy should be leading this Sarawak into the next century, because this is the green economy going to be the next economic system in the world. So I think Sarawak is one of the world, that can offer many these sort of what I call the green natural resources to the world. So I think Sarawak, what I call the strategy, what I call investment should be on these green technologies and green economy. Thank you very much.
I wanted to say something.
Go back to the history a little bit. Before your current premier, the previous premier, the late premier, he was already setting a roadmap, talking about people of Sarawak for Sarawak, already there. So he was already talking about inclusivity. He was talking about green. He was talking about sustainability and investment. So when you have a strong captain, this is what I call a leader as a captain. When you have a strong captain, pass over the baton to the next strong captain. So today you are able to move things faster. So in all policies or anything that we want to do, we need to have a strong captain. So today what I'm saying, whatever Sarawak is achieving today in terms of social protection, in terms of inclusivity, today you've got your own airlines, you're coming out with your education and so on and so forth. It's all the foundation done from the previous captain. And today's captain is just being as bold as the previous captain, implementing things out. So when Sarawak does this, what will happen next? When you talk about GDP, GDP number is just a number. Okay? What's more important is whether the wealth that is being earned in Sarawak is well translated down to the people of Sarawak. And with that, you'll be able to benefit more with Indonesia just beside you. So what can happen next? When you set up a good role model out there, this will be an eye-opener for other states. And I see now Johor could be emulating that also with the memorandum with Singapore. So then what happens? You have Indonesia that side, I have Singapore this side. So in this way, when more and more states start to do this, you are naturally giving an uplift to the federal, because from the state it goes to the federal. Federal does certain parts of the policy, then comes the state. So I think this is where the whole system works. And it's a good eye-opener, and I hope to see Sabah follow it too, because you are just neighbors, side by side. So the way forward, if you look at the global business cycle, if you take the 1800s all the way down, now we are in the 6th wave of the business cycle that talks about AI and so on and sustainability. The 7th wave is going to be all space economy thereafter. So I think this is where we are moving into. Okay? So definitely it's a good way you're starting the whole thing.
Thank you very much. I saw somebody at the back.
Can somebody help?
Somebody help with the mic.
Technician.
Can you move to the center mic?
Got it.
Hi, good morning. Most of the speakers just now mentioned about the neighboring countries in Malaysia have good economic growth, like Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, and all that. Can you, any one of you, share with most of us here, what were the key factors that they did right that perhaps most of us here in private sector can emulate the success stories? What were the key things that they did right? Okay, thank you.
First thing, because all these countries they have evolved over the past few years, three prime ministers, so that's why any foreign investor, they look at Malaysia, keep on changing the prime minister, you think they will invest or not? Because any investor will come to Malaysia to invest, they will think of at least 10 to 15 years or 20 years time, not only the few years. So that's why political stability is very important to attract this foreign direct investment. Because foreign direct investment, as I mentioned, is one of the key factors that can drive our economic growth. So without foreign direct investment, Malaysia just cannot grow. That's why we depend a lot on this trading. But trading also limited. It also depends on the traditional countries. That's why just I mentioned we have to look for more untapped markets in the South American countries and these African countries so that we can diversify our trading. This is one of these two things very important. Another thing also, this government have to come up with more incentive to be more friendly to these foreign investors. Because when foreign investors they try to come to Malaysia to invest, go and acquire this government department, is that this government departments cannot come back with a fast service or cannot help them with a fast approval, all these things. All these foreign investors just shy away because they are not only Malaysia you can invest on. Nowadays, Indonesia is overtaking Malaysia, Vietnam also overtaking Malaysia, Philippines also coming up. So that's why we got many competitors. That's why this is just like doing business. If we cannot give best service to our customer, these people will not come in. So this is very simple. First thing is political stability. Second thing, this government agency must be more friendly to our foreign investors. And then also we must have the relevant, what I call these high skilled workers. Just I mentioned, we must have high skilled workers in order to attract all these value-added industry from overseas. The fourth thing, we must have a good infrastructure. This will cut down the cost of doing business. If we have a good ports, seaport and these airports and this railway, so the cost of transportation will lower and will be faster, more efficient. And then all these foreign investors will be interested to look at all these few costs. First thing is the political stability, of course. Thank you.
If I can just add on, I think we all know the issue of political stability. 3 prime ministers in GE14, and most of the policies did not move. Okay, every new person comes, new cabinet minister comes, they come up with the new policies out there. So that is written everywhere. But put that aside, besides that, what is really needed, if you look at Indonesia, they have a strong captain, Jokowi. A strong leader, a strong captain. You look at Vietnam, a strong leader. You look at Philippines, a strong leader. So what we need is a strong leader. We can have beautiful policies. And most of these policies, what happens? Neighboring countries take it, modify it, and they implement it. So this is what's happening. So to your question, in a nutshell, I must say that we must have a strong leader. So if you look at last year was nothing but so much of politicking was going on. So even you have a strong leader, but it's a unity government. So you have a thought about it. So hopefully this year, with all those noises settled, we hope with a strong leader and all other things come into play, we should be moving. You look at the FDIs, they like Malaysia. You look at the inflows of FDIs approved. That's really approved. That tells us they like Malaysia. But that does not mean they're going to implement here. They can also apply to other countries. So it's back to that point. And one of the key challenges that when I was in Putrajaya under 8 and 9 PM, one key issue that we faced was lack of data coordination. So that's why in the 12 Malaysia plan, if you look at the 12 Malaysia plan, the midterm review, we have incorporated the importance of data. So when you have a centralized data, it becomes easier to advocate policy. You must remember in Malaysia, at federal, we can set a policy. Let's say you are an FDI in come, MIDA approves, it clears. When it goes to a particular state, then it becomes a different ballgame there. So there's lack of coordination. So this is where now, following the COVID, after the COVID incident, the lockdown, we are pushing quite hard on digitalization, automation, flow of data. So these are things taking place, but it's gradual. It will be a gradual process all the way. So you have to give some time. I won't say you announce today, tomorrow you do it again. There's no two ways about it. It's going to be going forward. The other part is also about the human capital. Because of the issue of the human capital, if I break down the human capital into three parts, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 is the top notch, the senior management and the likes. So I don't think we have big issues there. The issue is at tier 2, middle management, and tier 3, the bottom. So at tier 3, many of them say, yes, we need to automate. But let me be very honest with you. You cannot automate 100% everything. We still need foreign workers to do something. It's a fact there. So then, where do the relations have to move to? Gradually move upstream to the next level of it. There's a transition between level 3 to level 2. So this is where the missing gap is. So where are all these people slowly moving into? The gig economy. They do not want to work for people. We can't hold people. It's over the salary. They want a quality life. They want a quality time. Even if the gig economy does not have social protection, they are moving into that direction. Quite a number of them. I showed you the slides of 40%. So these are the areas that we need to look at going forward. So one, we need to have a strong capital. Second thing, when we start digitalizing things, then there is a coordination between the federal, the state, and the local council. Things can start moving fast. I totally agree on the implementation. Sometimes it gets stuck here and there. I give you a good example. Certain FDIs, when I was sitting in Putrajaya, approved after 9 months, the guy can't move. After 13 months, he can't move. So what happens? He goes to neighboring countries. So these are pressing issues. Practically.
Okay, I'm just going to say it this way. Everything in life is a cycle. So, but before I go on to explain what I mean by that, did you know that Cambodia has a national car project? Did you know that Cambodia has a national car project and they will roll it out soon for their domestic market? Here's the thing, this is something that we did in the 80s. So if you notice, there's everything that we do here it's all about the government taking the risk, or the ability of the government taking the risk for the nation's immediate, near-term, and future prosperity. Now, as what our neighboring countries are doing is essentially what we did in the 80s, in the 90s, and perhaps even earlier than that. The problem about the current situation is that we don't see this as a huge cycle where at a certain point in time of our development, we cannot look at the same picture again. We cannot be a baby that we were. We cannot be a teenager that we were. There is some kind of a maturity stage that we have to go through. And we have to look elsewhere to find, sort of like a journal of people or countries that have gone through this stage, through successes and failures that they have gone through. And the easy way to go is to look to the West. What we did wrong, what we did right, and then we can emulate that. We are not prepared to do that the way I see it, because we think that we are still a developing economy in that, very low value stage. We don't seem to graduate very well, where our neighboring countries are saying that, Malaysia did this in the 80s and it worked, let's do that now. So when everyone else is trying to do what we did, then we will realize ourselves being at par with our neighboring countries that we used to look down upon, sometimes in the past. So what I'm saying is that in economic theory, in economics there's a theory called economic convergence, where everything in life and everything, pretty much everything in life will collapse to one meaning, to one single line. So what that one single line is, literally means to us is that we are not moving where all other countries are moving towards, towards a point closer to us. So our job right now, the way I see it, is to find a way to move up, not to look back to say that these guys are doing this and we don't know what to do. We know what to do. It's just that we don't want to do it, or we're doing it too slow. That's what Dr. Anthony said just now. Okay, thank you.
Can I just make some brief points? When it comes to international investors, nobody cares about Malaysian politicians or the political stability. Nobody knows who they are. Frankly, international investors don't know. They don't care. They don't know who Moynihan is. They don't know who Ismail Sabri was. They don't care, right? And they mostly will understand that politicians come and politicians go. That's just the way of it. What they care about is clear policies. That's what they care about. Policy stability, not political stability. And in particular, they care about liberal policies. So if you want to attract international investors, you have to liberalize your policy environment. Why is it that Elon Musk came here as opposed to many of the other places around the region he could have gone to? Because Anwar liberalized the policies to allow him to come in here. That's the point. And still now, in the 21st century, Malaysian policies are illiberal in terms of access to capital. Even setting up a bank account is difficult. Owning companies here for foreign investors is hard. Everything about what's going on here is still in a mindset of control. Government should, foreigners are foreigners and shouldn't be treated in the same way as domestic investors. And that's one of the reasons why people will go to other countries. Because if you go to Vietnam, if you go to Indonesia, they are liberalizing. And that's what's attracting foreign investors to go there. It's much easier now than it was before. In the past, Malaysia was the gateway to Vietnam, and Malaysia was the gateway to Indonesia because it was difficult to set up and run companies there directly. Now it's less difficult, it's easier to go there directly. Vietnam is 3 times the population of Malaysia. Indonesia is 9 times the population of Malaysia. Malaysia needs to liberalize completely. And Malaysia also needs to change its attitude toward foreigners, which has become very unpleasant in the last few years. It has very, very unpleasant in the last few years. Just look at the Malaysia, my second home nonsense. How can you possibly attract foreigners into Malaysia when you have that sort of nonsense? It's unattractive. So Malaysia needs to look at that also. Once you get these things in shape, you're going to get not just the interest that is being shown by foreign investors through the approvals, but turning those approvals into actual on-the-ground investments. For every dollar of new foreign direct investment that comes into Malaysia, $3 go out in terms of repatriated profit. What Malaysia needs to do is to attract the foreign investors to stay here and reinvest here. And that's what they're not doing. They're making money here, they're investing it in Vietnam, they're making money here, they're investing it in Indonesia. Why? Because those countries are more attractive.
Thank you. I just saw one more question. I think you can allow one more.
Hello. My name is Rumi. Well, the panel, thank you so much for all the insights. Professor Jeffrey, you were talking about the high speed rails from Singapore to Johor and Johor to China maybe in the future. My question is, currently, if you go to that part of Malaysia and access social media, you only see the property and housing market being marketed at this moment of time. Focusing this rail link, thinking that the Singaporeans will come out and buy housing in Johor. What are the other economic sectors I would like to ask the panel that we need to focus in grabbing a part of the Singaporean economy? Right? I'm using that word, grabbing a part of the Singaporean economy to make sure that the Singaporeans will come and spend money in more economical, beneficial methods, being conducive for Malaysia. If not, of course, the rail link will be only a toy where people use only to commute. That's my question to the panel.
Anyone who can?
Just now I'm talking about this Pan-Asia Railway, which was mentioned by me, not Professor Dr. Jeffrey. So this one, the long-term benefits is linked up to China. That's why China already built this railway in this Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, all this. Now the last part is the Singapore and the KL railway. Then it can be linked up the whole thing already. So this one is the what I call the long-term plan of this what I call the Pan-Malaysia railway. Talking about this the what I call the spillover effects of this just as I mentioned, 140 industry will be getting benefit from this mega project because this project will help many this SME industry also, and then this contracting industry, infrastructure industry, even the restaurant also will be doing well because when you see all these contractors doing well, the restaurant business also will be doing well. So this one, this project not only benefiting what I call this housing development along this railway, but it will spill over even to other 140 industries. That's why governments, most of the governments, they want to build these mega projects, not only for this project itself, but it will help others industry, 140 world industry like trading, hardware, and so many other industries, the related industry. So it will really sort of spur the economic growth of a country. That's why if during the Bata time, remember, during Bata time, because the time they don't have many this mega project, that's why the economic growth a bit slow. Because the time, according to what they say, most of the money spent by our Dr. M, that's why they got no money to spend. So I think that's the reason you concentrate more on the human capital development. So that's why this mega project, you do it properly, it will really bring benefits to our country. Thank you very much.
Anybody else from the panel? Otherwise, I want to.
Okay, very quick one here. When we talk about mega projects, let's take HSR. You have to break it into two parts, the backward linkage and the forward linkage. So the backward linkage is where we talk about building the whole construction, the railway sector, so all those 140 industries related to them will be benefiting. So along that line, when you are building this railway track, what happens, you will start seeing township coming up. So your property sector will build. Now that is the first part of it. Then you also have to look at the forward link. The forward link is upon the completion of this HSR, the coming of the towns and so on, you'll start seeing the services sector. It can become a tourist center, it can become a regional hub, and whatever, etc., etc. So you start seeing economic activity picking up. So the network effect in like adding the backward linkage multiplier and the forward linkage multiplier, it comes to a total of about 6 times. So along this whole thing of the HSR also, it can also start creating tourism centers, attractions of tourism. So the whole thing is a way out of communicating point to point A to point Z. But along that point of communication, you will be seeing many other business activities within both the backward linkage and the forward linkage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank my panelists for very interesting insights to the topic that was given to them. I think they've done justice to it by giving us a very wide spectrum of insights. But I do not want to summarize what they've said because you've heard them. And then I also want to thank the enthusiastic questioner, a person from the floor who threw questions to the panel. Sometimes it was thrown to somebody else who was not on the panel, but never mind. Whatever it is, the questions were answered and handled by the panel. And finally, I want to thank my panel for making my life very easy. Since all of them had something to say and answer all the questions that were given, because otherwise it would be my job to answer the questions. So thank you very much, panelists. And with that, I want to end the session. I think we have overshot a little bit and eating into your coffee break. Thank you.